جنت کی جنت کی ہوا کی دعا جنت کی ہوا یہ کامیابیاں شہرت قدم قدم پہ ملی یہ کامیابیاں شہرت قدم قدم پہ ملی نصیب ایسا ملا ماں تیری دعاؤں سے تیری دعاؤں سے ماں تیری دعاؤں سے ماں تیری دعاؤں سے طواف میں نے کیا پی سعید طواف میں نے کیا پی سعید جو میں نے میرا کیا ماں تیری دعاؤں سے تیری دعاؤں سے ماں تیری دعاؤں سے ماں تیری دعاؤں سے مجھے گرانے پہ حاسد تلے ہوئے تھے مگر مجھے گرانے پہ حاسد تلے ہوئے تھے مگر میں دشمنوں سے بچا ماں تیری دعاؤں سے تیری دعاؤں سے ماں تیری دعاؤں سے ماں تیری دعاؤں سے قسم ہے اس میں اجالے کا کچھ جمال نہیں قسم ہے اس میں اجالے کا کچھ جمال نہیں عروج اس کو ملا ماں تیری دعاؤں سے تیری دعاؤں سے ماں تیری دعاؤں سے ماں تیری دعاؤں سے ماں کی دعا جنت کی ہوا ماں کی دعا جنت کی ہوا ماں کی دعا جنت کی ہوا کی دعا جنت کی ہوا.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another edition of News in Focus live on Radio Al Ansar International, broadcasting on the frequency Durban 90.4 FM, Peter Masburg 105.6 FM, and streaming on www.alansar.org.za. A special welcome to the listeners of Channel Islam International who are joining us live on this News in Focus broadcast this evening. We have quite a popular lineup this evening. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaba bikum. My name is Yunus Sacoor, and I will be in your company for the next 2 hours. I will be interviewing some eminent guests shortly. Just for record purposes, today the date is the 1st of April 2026, equivalent to 13th of Shawwal 1447. On tonight's show, we're going to chat on the state of the global economy as a result of the problems that have emanated in the Middle East. Will there be a recovery? That's a question mark our economists will answer later. We will also be doing an analysis and at the intention of the existing war between USA, Israel, and Iran. We know there's been a lot of articles on social media relating to the war, the reasons thereof. And this is as a result of other problems associated with issues in the Middle East as well as in Israel. My guest for this evening is Dr. Naledi Pandor. She's the former minister of DIRCO, a civic activist and community activist for decades. She's held various ministerial positions. Later on in the program, Ambassador Ibrahim Rasul, he was an ambassador of USA and now in South Africa, so we will be interviewing later on. We also will be interviewing Sayed Mustafa Daryabar. He's the Iran Cultural Counsellor for South Africa. Live in the studio with me, I also have Senior Counsel Advocate Mohamed Saleem Khan. We also have the President of United for Palestine and the Overboard Ratepayers Association, Abdul Falodia. But I'd like to play a clip that Comrade Naledi Pandor sort of implemented or said recently. I'd like our listeners to catch a listen, and shortly after that, I will interview Dr. Naledi Pandor.
Meet the Palestinian people on October 8th. We've been together in struggle for many, many decades. The people of Palestine trained the freedom fighters of the liberation movement. This is a relationship of freedom fighters, of activists, of nations that share a history of struggle for justice and freedom. I've already issued a statement alerting those who are South African and who are fighting alongside or in the Israeli Defense Force. We are ready. When you come home, we're going to arrest you. We didn't meet the Palestinian people on October 8th. We've been together in struggle for many, many decades. Can't say because Ukraine has been invaded that suddenly sovereignty is important, but it was never important for Palestine. It's very peculiar. If you believe in international law truly, then wherever sovereignty is infringed, it must apply. And this is the point we've been making, that we use the framework of international law unequally, depending on who is affected. And we are arguing that that must change. And one of the interesting changes that has occurred is the sudden movement, because Russia has invaded Ukraine, that we say, okay, let's not allow the Security Council to just have the veto and let it pass. We take it to the General Assembly. When some of us had been calling for the General Assembly to have a greater say, we never enjoyed support. But suddenly today, see, that's where international law begins to mean nothing. Because for some, we see it as a cheating, and for others, we see it as a benefit. So our argument is, let's revise the international multilateral system to ensure that we observe that post-1948 has arrived.
Two clips of Dr. Naledi Pandor on some of the speeches she made. I'd like to now welcome Dr. Naledi Pandor live on Al Ansar International. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Dr. Naledi, and welcome to News in Focus live on Radio Al Ansar International.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Brother Yunus. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
And thank you for joining us at short notice. And I'd like to know, how are you keeping after your retirement as the Minister of DIRCO? I know that was quite an important position. And now that this war is taking place in Iran and Iran is retaliating decisively, it would have been a handful for you as a Minister of DIRCO, Naledi.
Indeed, I think, alhamdulillah, I was given the opportunity to rest from all this controversy. Nonetheless, given the role that I play as chair of the board of Nelson Mandela Foundation, we continue to be concerned about matters of human rights, social justice, freedom, and democracy. So one is involved in a range of issues that are current in our world today.
Now, Dr. Naledi, our listeners in Radio Al Ansar, many of them are very simple people, civic activists, age-old civic activists, have been part of the struggle, and many of them are listening at home and beginning to wonder what's going on now. America is the bully boy of the world. Israel is now another bully boy, and the West is complicit with all these countries. And these two superpowers, they used the force to annihilate, the Palestinians in Gaza and attacking other, countries in the Middle East. And finally, they decided to have the courage and go for Iran. And the retaliation has been quite surprising. And indeed, Trump, in his foolishness or wisdom, he's now beginning to retreat. And, the comments coming to Iran war, Trump says Iran's president asked for a ceasefire, and he doesn't know which way to turn. So I thought maybe from your point of view, Dr. Naledi, if you can give us perspective, because our listeners want to know, why in the first place did these two superpowers, after having finished off with Gaza and other, poorer countries in the Middle East, have now gone for Iran with the excuse that they possibly going for a regime change, or maybe they have an interest with other things in Iran. Perhaps from your perspective, South Africa has been a close ally of Iran for decades, and our president said that clearly. So perhaps from your perspective, Dr. Naledi, you might want to give a perspective to our listeners as to exactly what's happening, why, and where this particular war is going to end off. It's a couple of questions, but I thought let me give you the floor to chat. I have with me a senior counsel advocate, Mohamed Saleem Khan, and he will join us from time to time in this chat. Dr. Naledi.
Jazakallah for this question, very difficult one. Let me begin by saying that there's a very famous book called Shock and Awe, which seeks to describe the American posture toward the rest of the world. And it's a posture in which we base policy on attack, on hard power, and we frighten the person we're aggressive or the country we have aggression toward to such a degree that they become frozen. They're struck in awe and cannot respond. And because of that shock, because of that awe, we then are able to do what we require. Now, it could be control of oil, it might be control of territory, and largely with the current United States administration, most interactions are about transaction. It's economic, and I think we need to be clear about that. But second point, and very important for all our listeners to understand, is that as many of the listeners have been so amazingly active in support of the cause of the people of Palestine, I'm sure they recognize that the onslaught against Palestine doesn't only rest with the occupied territories, that the intention, the objective, eventually is what is called Grand Israel, is that the entire Middle East, or a large part of it, would be occupied by Zionist forces. This is the ideology behind Zionism, and this is the imperative that is driving the aggression that we see today. And each step has been carefully thought through and is executed with massive support from the military and political complex. And we need to understand that the defense sector is a major beneficiary of all that is happening today, and therefore fuels the aggression and hostility that we see. So this is an age-old conflict, and the expectation and assumption is that no one is ready to be in active combat against this grand design. I think Iran has surprised everyone because they learned the lesson of 2025 and made sure that as 26 approached, they were preparing effectively. I'm sure they had begun preparing a long time before, but have now shown that they had the resolve to understand that there's a massive aggression that is going to confront them, because they had the courage to dare to say, we can define our own destiny. We can define our own ideology. We will pursue a political philosophy that we determine. We won't be told by someone else who and what we should be. The intention has been to stop innovation in Iran, to stop nuclear enrichment, which is the right of every country. The issue we all worry about is proliferation of nuclear weapons, but enrichment of uranium is something which is scientific, which countries should and can do, but we have to create this image that Muslim countries, Muslim-led countries, are countries of evil, cannot be trusted, must be destroyed, because that fits into that whole military economic complex that supports the Western hostility, particularly toward Muslim-led countries. The design of Islamophobia, its contents are very much part of what we're seeing. And therefore, in South Africa, we need to maintain our campaigns. We need to continue to be on the street. We need to work with allies across the globe to ensure that the whole region remains free, but that in particular, the people of Palestine achieve their freedom.
Now, Dr. Naledi, I've got Advocate Senior Counsel Mohamed Saleem Khan, and you know, when you got an advocate with you in the studio, he wants to raise questions. So he's indicated to me that he's got a brief question for you. So I thought before I continue, let me give him a chance to chat. Advocate Saleem?
It's rather a comment than a question, and you made reference to what I describe as this subversive economic plot in order to acquire control of the Middle East and the Arabian continent. And I find that this is sought to be implemented by the United States in concert with the Zionists through two processes. The first is ethnic cleansing, because they realize that in order to acquire control of the Middle East, of the Arabian continent, they have to commence, firstly, with acquiring complete and total control of Gaza. And ethnic cleansing implies a complete and total removal of all Palestinians from Gaza. Given their resilience and resistance, the American and Zionist combination realize that the only manner in which they're going to be able to acquire total and complete control is to remove the military elements, that is Hamas, and acquire complete and total control of Gaza. And should they not be able to acquire complete control of Gaza, there's no prospect or potential of them expanding their operations to neighboring territories. And of course, a very important and significant consideration also is the Zionist intention to acquire complete and total control of Masjid al-Aqsa and to substitute it with the Temple of Solomon. And this is historical, and we have to be extremely cautious of this. But in essence, what they seek to achieve through the process of ethnic cleansing and by the destruction of all military elements that provide with resistance to their goal is the removal of Hamas and the removal of all people in Gaza. Their delusion is somewhat amazing, because their perception appears to be, especially with regard to recent developments, the bombing of defenseless people initially, but now, without any resistance from the Palestinian people, this bombing, this destruction, this genocidal conduct continues. Now, what they intend to do, and I perceive this as a matter of grave concern, is to repeat what they've done in Gaza in neighboring territories, in Lebanon, for example. And it is for that reason that there's such focus on Hezbollah and the attempt to destroy Hezbollah. So indeed, Naledi, what you say is very relevant and pertinent and accurate, that perhaps the basis is this economic plot to acquire complete and total control of the Middle East and of the Arabian continent. And of course, from the Zionist perspective of Masjid al-Aqsa, and insofar as the United States is concerned, of course, they are acting in consonance with the Zionist desires, but combined, they intend to acquire control over the Middle East and the greater Arabian continent.
Naledi, perhaps you want to comment on what Advocate mentioned in relation to now what they're doing in Iran?
Well, I think we are largely in agreement that this notion of the grand design, and it's something we must not forget. And I think I'm rather surprised that the neighboring countries of Iran do not recognize this danger, that they are themselves not protected by any means. And in fact, should the onslaught on Iran succeed, they are next. So I think hopefully as these next few weeks unfold, the rest of the Gulf countries will come to realize that they are under threat, that there is a bigger issue that is underway. The attack into Hezbollah, into Lebanon, and the push now toward the south clearly indicates this taking of territory and this intention to build a larger, this grand Israel state. What is most concerning is the world's frozen status in response to what is happening. And I think it relates not just to the weakness of international institutions, but is very closely related to this shock and awe I referred to earlier, that the world is so stunned at the breach of international law that essentially the world doesn't know how to react. There is opposition to what is happening, but nobody has prepared themselves to act in such a circumstance, because following the establishment and design of a framework of international law protection, an assumption was that there would be independent adherence. And so you didn't build enforcement capacity, which would be built on a basis that someone will breach these frameworks. So the weak, the vulnerable are unprotected, even in the presence of international law. And this is, I think, the most worrying aspect. There's a tweet apparently going around today of a threat to South Africa, because South Africa has suddenly become, through its ports, an alternative route to the Hormuz Strait. South Africa didn't ordain that this should happen, but now it is being marked as taking on economic opportunity that is not due to it. So it would seem that there is madness underway in our world today.
Dr. Naledi, in relation to what you've just said and what Advocate Saleem mentioned, there was a statement that was made today in one of the newspapers, The Witness, and it is stating that a lot about humanity has degenerated to such an extent that history will be the witness. Two old men, Netanyahu, born 1949, 76 years old, and Trump, born 1946, 79 years old, have enjoyed every privilege this world has to offer. They've lived long lives, they've eaten well, they've slept in warm beds, they've held power, they've been celebrated, protected, and reached beyond imagination. And now, in the final chapter of their lives, they have decided to destroy everything, not just Iran, not just the Middle East, everything, global economy, world peace, the future of millions of children, all of it burned to ash because two bitter old men couldn't stand the thought of leaving quietly from this world. And here's the part that should terrify every human being on this planet. Nobody is stopping them. What you're saying. Now, I just want to raise a question related to the neighbors, Dr. Naledi, and the neighbors, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and other Arabian countries. USA have been using those countries as military bases. And if you look at statistics, Iran, in retaliation with their missiles, 80% have been targeted to the military sites in the neighboring countries because these countries have been complicit with the USA. And the question that arises that what can they do if Iran is retreats? So the complicit of these Arabian countries is a cause for concern. And 80% of the missiles were fired at the sites in these countries. And all these countries could say is that they're wondering why it happened. The other problem is not the entire Europe is in support of the USA Israel target of Israel of Iran. Perhaps you just want to comment on those aspects because they are the closest to what's taking place, Dr. Naledi.
Yes, well, for quite a long time, Brother Yunus, one has hoped that the Gulf would unite, particularly with respect to the cause of the people of Palestine. And we've not yet seen this unity of purpose. As South Africans who have been in the struggle against apartheid, we know the importance of the SADC, the Southern African Regional support, and of course the continent of Africa through the Organization of African Unity. So one has always hoped we'll see a similar rapprochement within the Gulf region, and we've not seen it again because the basis of international relations is economic benefit rather than regional development and regional unity. And I hope a point will come where the Gulf region will have a political discussion about unity and its importance. And that will only occur when they come to recognize the difficult challenge that they're confronted with this objective of a grand Israel. With respect to the second matter that you raise, one of the reasons that Israel and the United States of America can act with this massive impunity is you do not have a powerful countervailing force that is able to confront them and actually say, you cannot act in this way. We will stand and ensure that what you intend does not happen. We saw it a little bit with Greenland. We haven't seen it sufficiently with respect to Palestine. But the fact that there hasn't been a joining of the aggression signals a reluctance and a different attitude to what is unfolding in the world today. So are signs of an emergent countervailing. But I don't think it's yet as strong as we want it. But we welcome its beginning, and we should encourage it.
Thank you, Dr. Naledi. I think Advocate Saleem wants to come into discussion again. Advocate Saleem, go ahead.
Thank you, Ismail. Iran's conduct in attacking military, that is, United States military bases in different Middle East and neighboring countries is perfectly defensible. They have not attacked these countries per se. They have attacked the military bases of the United States, which is attacking it. Therefore, Iran's conduct is one of self-defense, justifiable in terms of the applicable principles of public and private international law. So I have no problems whatsoever with Iran's stance in reacting as it has done. In fact, there's a lot of planning behind this. And the manner in which Iran has proceeded is extremely impressive. I'd like the listeners to focus on this. Iran manufactures drones at an extensive level. A number of drones are manufactured per day. These drones cost relatively less, in fact, substantially lesser monies to manufacture than the anti-drone or anti-aircraft weaponry which Israel and the United States utilize in resisting attacks from these drones. So from a purely economic perspective, Iran is substantially advantaged in the sense that the United States and Israel together are expending a substantial amount of money in the weaponry which they use in order to resist attacks from these drones. It is not surprising, therefore, that Trump recently approached Congress for the approval of $20 billion for the purpose of acquiring additional arms and military equipment for the purpose of its war which it has declared upon Iran. So from a purely economic perspective, Israel and the United States have been substantially disadvantaged. And I see in this military precision. So Iran has planned this. This did not occur by chance. This was properly planned and properly executed and exacted a severe economic punishment against Israel as well as the United States. So from that perspective, Iran has substantially advantaged itself. But now let's examine how best one can address the enforcement of this excellent decisions which the South African legal team through and with your assistance, Naledi, have achieved at the ICJ, the International Court of Justice. This was exceptional. This is excellent. It has attracted a lot of international attention and a lot of ire from the United States as well as from Zionist Israel. The problem, of course, is one of enforcement. How does one enforce conduct which is proscribed by public and private international law and which is prohibited in terms of the rulings of the International Court of Justice? How does one enforce it? Because the United Nations is toothless in the enforcement of these laws which provide for punishment for the type of atrocities, genocidal atrocities that have been and that continue to be perpetrated by Zionist Israel and the United States of America. A thought that has occurred to me, and I understand that the Iranian ambassador is on the show, and I think we should take advantage of this. Iran has made certain demands of the United States for the purpose of settlement negotiations. And this, of course, it has done through intermediaries. The United States has not had the courage to approach Iran directly and engage with it with regard to settlement, but it has utilized the offices of Pakistan and certain other countries to approach Iran. But Iran has made certain demands, and they've indicated amongst these demands of, for example, compensation, recognition of their sovereignty, etc., etc., etc. What I would like, and I'd really appreciate, and I appeal to the Iranian ambassador to convey to the powers that be in Iran, that one of the demands that should be incorporated into the demand, which would be a prerequisite for settlement negotiations, is that atrocities against Gaza must cease immediately. And if there is any continuation of those atrocities, that Iran will continue with its attacks against American military bases and against Zionist Israel. If that is one of the demands, then one would see for the very first time at least one country in the world adopting a measure that is proactive and that will be conducive to protecting the defenseless people of Gaza, who continue to be annihilated by the satanic force of the United States acting in combination with Zionist Israel. Now, the aspect of enforcement is particularly pertinent because Naledi has clearly explained that the problem lay with the enforcement. We have all the laws that proscribe the type of misconduct, the heinous conduct, which Zionist Israel and the United States are engaging in. We have the judgments of the ICJ. What we do not have is a proper facility through which this can be enforced. And if Iran includes this amongst their demands, that will be very proactive and progressive. Now, the international inactivity to the atrocities perpetrated in Gaza is astounding. Iran, several countries have paid lip service to this. They've indicated that this misconduct is unacceptable and an infringement of laws, etc., etc. But no country has taken an active step in order to discourage this type of conduct. The furthest we see is Iran indicating that one of the reasons for its attacks is the atrocities perpetrated in Gaza and a kind of reaction to the death of little children in Gaza. This is to be encouraged, and other countries are to be encouraged to conduct themselves in a similar manner. But I cannot emphasize sufficiently the importance of Iran including in its demand for settlement negotiations that the atrocities against Gaza terminate immediately and not ever be repeated.
Dr. Naledi, that was a mouthful by Advocate Saleem. Perhaps you want to comment, Naledi?
Well, I think these are excellent proposals, and I fully agree with the analysis of Advocate Saleem. Indeed, I would really encourage Iran to use the strategic advantage that it has at the moment to table these issues and to address the current plight of the residents of Gaza and the threats facing the occupied West Bank and other Palestinian territories. So I absolutely agree. But let me add that while we wait for nations to act, as civil society, let us mobilize globally. For the first time, we have a global movement in support of Palestine. Let us use it to impact on the United Nations, particularly through calling for a UN committee against apartheid Israel, for looking at whether Israel should still be in the United Nations, given the atrocities being committed. Let us encourage the ICC to execute the warrants it has issued for members of government, including Mr. Netanyahu. So if civil society could work together on just a few key campaign areas and mobilize internationally around them, just as they mobilized in support of the freedom fighters against apartheid in South Africa, we could have a global force that begins to shift the needle. We had the sports boycotts, we had music and creative arts boycotts, a range of areas, and civil society was leading all over the world in these. So apart from formal state or government institutional processes, let's look at what civil society can do. Already we've seen that lawyers that are concerned about justice are working together on cases against individuals from their various countries who have been participating as soldiers alongside the IDF in the atrocities in Gaza. We should encourage those lawyers to make those names public, to have class action against those soldiers, those mercenaries actually, and to ensure that the world knows who they are and that action is taken and should be taken in South Africa because we have a specific law on this matter. So there are things that can be done beyond action by the state or state actors.
Naledi, just before we close off, I just want to read a comment from one of the listeners. Salams, subsequently, however, and whichever way we think, there will not be any unity in the Middle East country against Zionist entities. Most Arab countries have ancestry of Zionist blood and connect. Now the world sees it clearly as they all have American Zionist bases. All this warmongering against one Iran, a Muslim, who is being technically assisted by China and Russia. Now, before we close off our news break in a few minutes' time, Dr. Naledi, Trump says Iran's president asked for a ceasefire. President has denied this. He earlier said the U.S. could end its operations against Iran within the next 2 to 3 weeks. Iran says that the Secretary of State in U.S. is saying that they're going to have to re-examine its relationship with NATO after the Iran war ends. The final question for you, Dr. Naledi, is the U.S. now on the back foot and embarrassed as to what is happening?
Well, to answer you, I don't know whether they feel embarrassment, but I think there's huge exposure of inadequacy. All of us can see it. The statements change from day to day. You have triplets who are appearing in the media, each one raising something very different from the other. There's absolute confusion. The only concern we have is lives are being destroyed. Iranian and Palestinian and Lebanese, ordinary civilians, men and women are being killed. And so we do want the war to stop. We do want trials at the International Criminal Court, just as we had with Serbia on the Bosnia-Kosovo question, so we want to see with respect to the genocide in Gaza. So, one will not get rationality at the moment, because as you know, there's also an election coming up. And so you have to be dishonest in order to fool the public to vote for you. But I think more and more the wool is no longer being pulled over the eyes of citizens of the United States. You could see from the protest in the past weekend that the truth is beginning to be seen.
Dr. Naledi, on a closing note, I want to end this conversation on the comment that we as Muslims firmly believe that Allah is in control of this universe. He is the best of planners. It comes in a hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him, that when oppression and wrong is taking place, as believers, we can do one of three things. Go physically and stop the wrong. Number two, take appropriate action from where you are against the wrong, and the least we can do is to make du'as. So we request our listeners make du'as for our brothers and sisters in the Middle East and indeed in other parts of the world. as Islam, we are peace-loving people. We like peace. We like, justice. On that note, I'd like to indicate to you, Dr. Naledi, it's always a pleasure to interview you. You give us facts that are most enlightening. You sacrifice your entire life towards the struggle for democracy, and you continue to do so, being the chair of the Nelson Mandela Foundation. May the Almighty Allah give you the strength and the ability and the help to continue with your good work going forward. We will interview you in the future, Dr. Naledi, and after the news break, we will be interviewing Ambassador Ibrahim Rasul and indeed Sayed Mustafa Daryabar, who's from the Iran area, for further updates. We thank you once again and we wish you everything the best. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam, and Jazakallah for this wonderful opportunity. I will listen in to the rest of the program. Jazakallah.
Shukran, Dr. Naledi. On that note, that was Dr. Naledi Pandor, the former Minister of DIRCO, a very enlightening individual, sacrificed their life for the struggle for democracy. We will break for the news and inshallah we'll continue our interviews.
An informative Islamic global perspective. This is Al Ansar News. Making news this hour, the 1st of April. The news from Durban 90.4 FM, Peter Maritzburg 105.6 FM. Suspected Pinetown hitman is killed in police shootout, America Monina. Etegbini Metro Police say officers tracked down a 41-year-old man to a hideout in the early hours of today. A suspected man was shot dead in Pinetown, west of Durban. The man was wanted in connection with multiple murders on the KwaZulu-Natal south coast. Etegbini Metro Police say officers tracked down the 41-year-old man in a hideout. The police's Etegbini District Trio Crimes Unit, KwaZulu-Natal Crime Intelligence, as well as the Durban Metro Police and K9 units were all involved in the operation. Police say the man allegedly opened fire when other officers tried to arrest him, causing a shootout. The suspect was fatally wounded during the gun battle. Police say firearms recovered at the scene will form part of the investigation. More news. Durban Chamber of Commerce says where feasible, companies should seek to soften the blow for staff, such as by exploring flexible working arrangements. The Durban Chamber of Commerce says it fully supports measures to cushion the impact of sharp fuel price increases on consumers. The fuel price adjustment for April was significantly higher than expected due to the war in the Middle East. The government stepped in with a temporary 3% litre fuel levy reduction for a month. Finance Minister Ino Godongwana had this to say.
This is still for April. We are still going to look what do we do in the next 2 months, May and June. It's quite expensive. Even the 3 rand now for April alone is 6 billion rand.
More news. Travelers using the Limpopo border post between South Africa and Mozambique and Mpumalanga have expressed different views about the clearing processes at the port of entry. This comes as the number of travelers and traffic volumes started to increase at the Limpopo border ahead of the Easter long weekend. More than 16,000 people were processed yesterday alone. Mike Masiapato of the Border Management Authority has this to say.
The key priority in terms of the exit leg is what you will call effective corridor management, in terms of making sure that all the people, as they come through towards the port, they don't create chaos on the corridor. And for that reason, we are working with the national, provincial, as well as local authorities to make sure that we are able to ensure that there is no any chaos. In terms of the port or inside the port, is to make sure that we are able to process people as speedily as possible. Remember, people used to spend a lot of time in the port, 3 hours and all of those. Now we need to at least make sure 30 minutes, 45 minutes, people must be out of the environment. That is the priority in terms of the exit leg. But at the same time, we need to also take care of the borderline, make sure that nobody is trying to exit the country illegally because they avoid being V-listed and ultimately be declared undesirable. For the return leg, the peak we expect it on Monday when everybody is going to be coming back. And of course, our priority is to make sure we are able to process people as speedily as possible. And of course, the key issue with the return is the issue of illegal migration. Very much ready to make sure that we intercept anybody attempting to enter the country illegally.
Now, the news now, one lane is open for traffic on the N1 road between Modimole and Mokopong in Limpopo after an accident during which 5 people were killed earlier today. 2 other persons were critically injured and taken to the FH Udendal Hospital in Mokopane. Limpopo experiences high traffic levels or volumes and road carnage during the Easter period as travelers head to various destinations, that's according to local media. The Provincial Transport Department's Chifiwa Dali says motorists should obey speed limits and avoid drinking and driving. Finally, international story. Yemeni armed forces have conducted their 3rd round of strikes against Israeli targets in the occupied territories, targeting sensitive locations. Reporters, the operation was conducted jointly with Iranian armed forces and the Lebanese resistance movement Hezbollah and successfully achieved its objectives. The Yemeni armed forces officially joined the war against the US and Israel in support of the Islamic Republic of Iran and the resistance front in Lebanon, Iraq, and Palestine. Earlier in the week, they carried out the first military operation using a barrage of ballistic missiles targeting sensitive Israeli military sites in southern occupied Palestine. Reports says that the US and Israel launched their aggression against Iran on the 20th of February, assassinating leader of the Islamic Revolution, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, and several high-ranking military commanders. Hundreds of civilians have also been killed in the aggression so far. In your weather, 29 degrees. A quick reminder of our top story. Etiguni Metro Police say officers tracked down a 41-year-old man in a hideout in the early hours of today. Report says gunfire was exchanged and the man died in the process. That's the news.
We'd love to meet you. Pay us a visit. Radio Al Ansar.
Allah, 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 Allah.
تنہا ہوں میں اور امتحان لاکھوں تنے ہیں سامنے بیٹھا ہوں میں مایوس کن آئے نہ کوئی مجھے تھامنے اللہ اللہ تو میری سن لے صدا
حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير
مایوب ہوں تیرا کرم پردہ رکھا عزت بھی دی بڑھ کے دیا اوقات سے دولت بھی طاقت بھی اور وقت بھی کر دے خطا ہر معاف تو فہرست اسیاں کو چھوڑ دے اللہ اللہ تو میری سن لے صدا
حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير
رنگینیوں خود غرضیوں میں ہے گزاری یہ عمر ہے آرزو بس ایک یہی کر دوں تیرے نام شام و سحر تسکین دل حاصل کروں رخ اپنی جانب تو موڑ دے اللہ اللہ تو میری سن لے صدا
حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to News in Focus live on Radio Al-Ansar International, broadcasting on the frequency Durban 90.4 FM, Peter Masberg 105.6 FM, and streaming on www.alansar.org.za. A special welcome also to our listeners of Channel Islam International who are joining us live on this News in Focus program this evening. Before the news break, we were chatting with Dr. Naledi Pandor, former Minister of DIRCO, and she gave us an insight into the situation in the Middle East, particularly US-Israel attack on Iran and the retaliation thereof and some implications. Live in the in sort of on air, we've got Ambassador Ibrahim Rasul. He's the former ambassador of USA and now an ambassador in South Africa, live from Cape Town. Ibrahim, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to News in Focus live on Radio Al-Ansar International.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Yunus, to you and to all your listeners and to my fellow guests. And thank you very much for this opportunity.
Yeah, you come from one of the beautiful cities of South Africa, Cape Town, where some comments are coming through from some people. The designers are trying to fill up Cape Town and take over the Western Cape, Ambassador Ibrahim.
Now, look, I think that there is definitely something amiss with property prices, with entire villages being bought, and with property shows being hosted, particularly for certain communities and for local people actually being priced out. The Daily Maverick had a major article that Cape Town was becoming unaffordable for its own middle classes. And so I think that there is definitely something amiss, and I definitely think that there are those who see opportunity in the misfortunes of the African National Congress at the political electoral level and see the future maybe being determined far more by your former apartheid parties.
And further, you get your current Minister of Sport and Recreation, Gayton McKenzie, making all kinds of funny statements, about Islam, etc. But we'll talk about that on another day. But I was chatting to Dr. Naledi earlier on an article that appeared in The Witness, which is a newspaper in Pietermaritzburg. And just to summarize what they were saying is they said that if two elderly men, one hiding in a bunker, one tweeting from a golf course, can bring the entire planet to the edge of destruction, then what was all of it for? They say, number one, the UN is useless, international law a joke, human rights a memory, global cooperation dead. Now, we have allowed the future of humanity to be placed in the hands of two evil, desperate, narcissistic old men who will be dead in a decade while the rest of us live with the consequences forever. Netanyahu wants regime change. The man who can barely change his own diaper without consulting Washington. And they say Trump wants to weaken Iran. He can't even weaken his own craving for attention. So with that kind of comments that are coming through and being tweeted in newspapers, etc., and the rest of the world is watching, I'm not saying China and Russia are just waiting for things to happen and maybe giving moral support to Iran and Gaza is annihilated. Ibrahim, you were there as an ambassador in the USA, and for various reasons you were called back or asked to come back to South Africa. I'm not sure whether you just want to share with us what really happened for the benefit of our listeners, because you're quite an accomplished comrade in the Western Cape, and I met you a couple of times there, and I know you don't hold back, and you say what you have to say. Maybe our friend Trump wasn't happy with some of the comments you made about Palestine, and that's one of the reasons why there was a reaction. Ambassador Ibrahim?
Now, look, I think that my comments were largely following a slew of punishments South Africa was being subjected to without rhyme or reason. By the time I spoke, already all our aid had been stopped, whether it was PEPFAR money for HIV/AIDS, whether it was health research money through the World Health Organization. By that time already, we were on the high rope for tariffs in our trade. AGOA was completely uncertain whether it would be renewed. And by that time, AfriForum and a lot of the white parties were already peddling the idea of a genocide against whites and the confiscation of white lands, both of which are palpably false. And when I explained to a South African audience who can't believe that we are being manifestly punished and that at the other end of that punishment are real lives. We're expecting 137,000 AIDS-related deaths because of the cut in PEPFAR funding. I mean, that is it, the unemployment, the closing of factories because of the uncertainty of AGOA. When you explain it, you can't find a rational reason because Trump is not a rational person. But you can, for example, understand the mindset of a supremacist. And I warned at that point, not only does he run America by a supremacist instinct, but it is a supremacism that wants to be exported to the world. He is only supporting white right-wing populist parties like Farage in Britain, like Orban in Hungary, and so forth, Marine Le Pen in France, and so forth. He's only supporting that. And his support for Israel has had devastating consequences. I'm not saying that he started it. Biden certainly helped Israel, and every other American president before that have helped Israel to kill the idea of a Palestinian state, to kill Palestinians, and to propagate the message that Israel is the victim. Those things were all in place. I think what I was doing was to explain to South Africans what it was. That got out, and alhamdulillah, I am very proud of the fact that of almost 200 ambassadors in the United States, there was one ambassador that was heard in the White House, and there was one ambassador that heard the White House, so much so that they revoked my privileges within 72 hours. And I have absolutely no regrets about it, because now I am contacted by US organizations, by US politicians, US media to say, what did I see a year ago that is only becoming evident today? And I think we can now all begin to say that there is not just a supremacism, but that there is a hubris, an arrogance that comes with that supremacism, that can't believe that Muslims can think and strategize and play chess, that can't believe that Iran can strategize, play chess, and defend themselves. And it is this disdain for our humanity, for our intellect, for our ability to think, that I think is the hallmark of a supremacist superior mindset. And they are today reaping the wind because of that arrogance. They could not credit Iran with having a defense. They thought, and Iran was looking at it and saying, okay, they took out Saddam Hussein and Iraq fell. They took out the Taliban and Afghanistan fell. They took out Gaddafi and Libya fell. Let's do something different. And they decentralized their leadership. They reorganized their military. They played chess when the US was playing dominoes. And therefore, it is a supreme disrespect for people of other colors, other races, other religions, other beliefs, and other ideologies.
Ambassador Ibrahim, we mentioned that the complicit of the, neighboring Arab countries with USA and Israel, and allowing the USA to have their military sites, which 80% of Iran's missiles went into those sites and damaged those sites, and even attacked the airport, and actually sent an indication to these countries that you are complicit and you think the USA is going to defend you. Where's the defense? That's one area. It was a strategic decision taken by the military wing of Iran to take that position, to the surprise of both the Zionists as well as USA. On the other side, you've got Russia and China, the superpowers. Iran in between wasn't regarded or not regarded as a superpower. So you've got two giants attacking a small country, okay, with a population of 90 million, but military-wise, it was underestimated. Dr. Naledi told me that, if we're talking about Trump, nothing comes as a surprise to him. He just does things and decide later what he's done. Now, did these two countries underestimate the ability of Iran in the reaction? Because they sent a signal when Israel attacked Iran and the retaliation thereof. What's your take on that, Ambassador Ibrahim?
I think that Iran outmaneuvered them completely based on a reading that these are arrogant people filled with hubris that underestimated Iran's capacity. if they had been preparing for war with Iran for decades, Iran has been preparing a defense for 47 years, because since the inception of the Islamic Revolution in Iran, they have been under attack. They have been tested in an 8-year war sponsored by the US and Israel, conducted by Saddam Hussein and supported by the Gulf states. And so they understood the need that they will always be vulnerable. They have been under sanctions for 49 years, and they have made necessity the mother of invention. And so they were able to do it. So the first thing was they exploited the underestimation of Iran's capability. The second thing that they did, they surprised completely the United States and Israel, because they embarked on a strategy, what metaphorically, and I stress on it, metaphorically, says beat the dog and scare the master. And that's what they did. They went for the allies, the signers of the Abraham Accord. They went for the missile bases and the military bases within those neighboring states, and completely changed the complexity of the war. And when they tried to hide the generals in the Burj Al Arab and all of those Iran went after that as legitimate targets. And when they were using the airports to land logistical support, Iran went for the airports and so forth. So the fact of the matter is that was strategy number 2 that surprised them: beat the dog and scare the master. The third one is put all your less effective missiles into the air to exhaust the munitions of the Iron Domes. When you allow all your less effective missiles to absorb the impact of the Iron Dome, then you hold your hypersonic missiles and your cluster missiles, and then you send it off into Israel, and then you inflict the damage. They didn't think that that was going to be. The fourth strategy that outmaneuvered them was to not build everything, because, you see, they believe their own propaganda that Iran only has one supreme leader called the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. They did not realize that there are a whole lot of regional leaders hiding in the mountains, in the deserts, deep underground, each one a commander of their weaponry, and that these ones can be operated independently. So that was the fourth strategy that surprised them, the durability and the resilience of the Iranian leadership. And the final strategy is that Iran said to them, put your boots on the ground. We are waiting for you. Once this aerial battle is done, bring in your soldiers, and we have 1 million soldiers waiting to overwhelm them. And suddenly that didn't work. And absolutely finally, what Iran did was to play a card that they never expected. Close the Strait of Hormuz, do a Trump on it, impose tariffs and taxes and levies on everything that passes through there, make money out of it, like tariffs is Trump's wonderful word. Here you now have Iran playing that game and actually showing the ability to shoot down any ship that wants to pass through it, constrain 20% of the energy supplies, constrain 80% of food supplies to Dubai, to Abu Dhabi, to Qatar, to Saudi Arabia, to Bahrain, and so forth. I mean, that is what is the effect of it all. And therefore, you see the first step, global oil prices rising. The next step is transport, food prices, inflation generally rising all over the world. And what Trump is playing is no longer strategic mastership. What he is playing is whack-a-mole. Wherever Iran hits, he's got to try and hit it down. He's playing whack-a-mole with whatever Iran is doing, and Iran is dictating the terms, albeit from an infinitely inferior military and financial position.
So, where do you see this war going? He's talking about a ceasefire. I use the word he's embarrassed, he's on the back foot. Naledi says, where you see a fellow like Trump being embarrassed, he never admits defeat. He's in a corner. From your perspective, Ambassador Ibrahim, where do you see this war going? Do you see a ceasefire coming shortly? Because obviously global markets are heavily affected. It's affecting the world economy. And somewhere along the line, there need to be some kind of strategy on the part of USA, because Netanyahu, as I mentioned earlier, he's got one agenda.
If I were
right?
an Iranian decision maker, I would not want a ceasefire too early. Not until I am sure they are not going to attack us again. Not until I am sure that they will not lift sanctions. Not until I'm sure that they will not assassinate leaders again. Not until I am sure that they will start respecting Iran again and admitting it into a global community of states. So, secondly, I will not have a ceasefire too soon, because the fallout is only happening. Trump's arrogance, his hubris, by saying that Mohammed bin Salman has kissed his ass, is such an affront to the Arab mentality, to a sense of dignity, that this is causing enormous reaction on the streets of the Middle East, that they are embarrassed to now be associated, because they can see Trump's true mindset, that he sees them as inferior as what he sees Iran to be. And suddenly you're going to now hear Mohammed bin Salman saying, we're not buying weaponry from America any longer. We are not going to be doing business. We are opening our channels to China. We are opening our channels to Europe. We are opening our channels to Russia. And so Iran would want that to mature a bit more, so that the break, because the Arabs will not come on Iran's side out of love or out of respect for them as fellow Muslims. The Arabs will come on Iran's side because it will be disastrous to remain on Trump's side and to be seen to be doing the work of Israel in the region.
Most certainly. Ambassador Ibrahim, I've got with me live in the studio Advocate Mohamed Saleem Khan. And when you have an advocate, he wants to comment. So I'm going to get him on the line just to make a comment or two.
Please.
And hopefully we can conclude the interview in due course. Advocate Saleem, Bismillah.
Ibrahim, indeed, the sentiments you express are very pertinent and extremely relevant. While listening to you, the thought occurred to me that the balance of power has indeed been significantly interrupted as a result of the strategy employed by Iran. You made reference to the fact that Iran has obviously planned, as the states and the Zionist Israel has been planning, the attack on Iran. Iran has also occupied itself with strategizing. And indeed, when one looks at the relatively cheaper drones which Iran is producing and utilizing in attacking military targets, American military targets in the Middle East, etc., that this is exacting a severe economic punishment against Zionist Israel, which is also being attacked by these drones, as well as the United States, because their anti-drone weaponry is costing substantially more than the cost of these drones. So purely from an economic perspective, this is exhausting the resources of the states and Zionist Israel. Indeed, I listened to a report by an economist relating to the adverse effect which this is having on the American economy. And presently, the American populace are complaining about the significant increase in the price of fuel. In addition, they are disadvantaged from a financial perspective. But Ibrahim, what is your view and perspective on the fact that Iran, having established a position of advantage, now clearly they have, American statesmen are speaking in terms of negotiating settlement with Iran and indicating that if Iran is prepared to cooperate, they will certainly encourage settlement negotiations with Iran, that Iran includes as a precondition to settlement negotiations the the stopping of attacks against Palestinians in Gaza, and any continuation of this attracting a backlash from Iran. In other words, we have not as yet had any kind of effective or proactive intervention from any country in favor of Palestine. Iran has indicated that certain of its attacks are motivated also by considerations of a type of revenge for the Palestinian people. But short of that, we've not really had any type of positive reaction or response from any country. Lip service has been paid to the fact that this genocidal conduct is an infringement of public and private international laws, of the rulings of the International Court of Justice, etc., etc. But the furthest we've gone to any kind of proactive intervention by any state is Iran's comment that some of the attacks have been motivated by the atrocities perpetrated, genocidal atrocities perpetrated against the people of Palestine. But I think that if a condition was introduced, and I understand that the Iranian ambassador is going to be on the next phase of this program, and perhaps I'll put to him that he should convey to the powers that be in Iran that one of the conditions that should be imposed to settlement negotiations by Iran is the seizing of all types of atrocities against Gaza, under the threat that even if there is settlement, and even if there is some type of a solution that is acceptable to Europe, to the United States, and to Israel, insofar as Iran's claim to sovereignty over the Straits of Hormuz is concerned, that there could be retaliatory measures imposed in the event of Israel resorting to genocidal attacks against Gaza. What are your thoughts on this, Ibrahim?
Advocate Mohamed Saleem, thank you very much. I can only agree with the overall point that you're making, as I believe Naledi Pandor has also agreed with the overall sentiment. And I think that in the next segment, indeed, we should encourage the Iranian ambassador to get that message home as a message from South Africa, so that they include it. And I think they need it for two reasons. The substantial reason, one, is to get it into an agreement and to flag it and to say there is no ceasefire without this being central to it. And the second reason is absolutely critical, because it will continue to drive home the point that it was only Iran from the neighborhood. I'm not even speaking at this point about South Africa, but it was only Iran from the neighborhood that stuck its neck out to stop a genocide, whether it is through arming its proxies or whether it was in its own way of doing things. However, on the promise of stopping it, I will not trust Israel. What I will do is to say, and to link to the earlier point you make, Advocate, when this war started, America was already 37 trillion US dollars overdrawn on its credit card, and it was printing money, and Trump thought a quick way of making money was through tariffs and through cajoling and blackmailing Middle Eastern countries and others to invest in the USA. The only way I will trust them to honor the agreement not to attack Palestine and the Gazans and to stop the genocide is if we extend that credit card even more, to prevent them from ever being able to put more money into Israel's hands and more permission into Israel's mind about doing the genocide. You see, what we are facing now, Trump, every rally he went to in the USA, he boasted that gas prices were coming down to $2 at the pump per gallon. It's now $5. He was able to say, I'm bringing in more money and more goods into the US, and I'm bringing it in cheaper. We're going to manufacture it here. Inflation. He was worried about egg prices at the beginning of his term. He is going to be worried about all food prices. You must reduce the American wallet so that they can't fund Israel any longer. And you've got to reduce the American appetite for war. And thirdly, you must create an irrevocable break of trust in the American citizenry in Israel's bona fides. So I will say your strategy is absolutely right, but it has to be part of a larger strategy of physical disablement of them to do what they must do. And so I would agree with it, but I think we need not to lose this moment. If we give them an easy let off at this moment, we will allow them to rearm and to plot their own revenge again. And so I think at this moment, we've got to continue exacting, because what Iran has is a strategic advantage with tactical deficiencies. What America has is facing a strategic defeat with massive advantages in weaponry and so forth, and that changes the calculus. America still has the advantage in the benefit in the balance of power, but I think what Iran has been able to do is to shift the balance of forces in the world, and we mustn't stop until we consolidate it behind a vision of the kind of world that Minister Pandor spoke about, where rules apply again, where impunity is pushed back, where there is no place for adventure, and most importantly, there are no funds for further adventures.
Minister, at least Ambassador Ibrahim Rasul, thanks very much for joining us. Joining us live is Brother Sayed Mustafa Daryabar. I need to cross to him, but we need to thank you for joining us, Brother Ibrahim, on this very important interview, and you shared some very important information for us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you the strength to continue with your good work in the Western Cape. And the next time we chat, we'll chat about politics. The elections around the corner, municipal elections and service delivery is a key issue. And in South Africa, we got so many challenges, but we have to be mindful of what's happening in other parts of our world. Our brothers and sisters are suffering out there. And it comes in the hadith that when you feel a pain in any part of the body, the rest of the body feels the pain. So we as Muslims, we feel the pain. And the least we can do is make du'as for our brothers and sisters and talk about it. I mentioned to Dr. Naledi that the hadith clearly states, let's do something about it. And we thank you for your commitment and your, the eloquent manner in which you expressed yourself in the USA and was not afraid of any kind of oppression that's being stipulated there. And you came back to South Africa as a hero. We thank you, and inshallah we'll chat to you sometime in the future. But you can continue to listen to our interview with Brother Sayed Mustafa Darabari, and let's hear his comments coming from Iran as a cultural counselor in South Africa. Shukran, Brother Ibrahim, again. On that note, we will take a short break, and inshallah after the break, we'll cross over to Sayed Mustafa Daryabar, Iran cultural counselor. I'm sure he's been listening to the interviews, and he'll be able to share some important information on Iran's strategy going forward.
Welcome to Simplex Radio. Visit our showroom for the full range of car audio. Our TV department carries top brands with quality LED panels, full HD to Ultra HD, and now the experience of Super Ultra HD. Visit our theater rooms and transform your home with brands like Onkyo, Integra, Denon, Boston Acoustics, Yamaha, and more for quality audio visual experience. Now available, full range of home appliances. A one-stop shopping experience. Call 031 306 4029 or Kenilworth Park, 202 Brickfield Road, Overport. Simplex Radio, the name you can trust.
There are over 200 million orphans globally. We can't help all of them, but what if we each helped just one? The Al Imdad Foundation now gives you an opportunity to help just one orphan from Syria or Palestine. For just 500 Rand per month, You can help safeguard the dignity of an orphan by assisting them with basic needs such as food, clothing, shelter, medical care, and attention. Our orphan sponsorship program allows you to track the progress of your orphan through regular feedback. Make a difference in the life of an orphan today. Visit alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243 for more information.
In Durban, join us at The Social, a premium pop-up experience from the 4th to the 6th of April at Muni's Hockey Club, next to the Botanic Gardens. With over 85 vendors, amazing food, drinks, and desserts, there's something for everyone. Entrance is just $20. Follow at The Social DBN on Instagram. The Social, where Durban comes together. Proudly sponsored by Accents and Haval Toti.
Radio Al Ansar welcomes your feedback. If you have a broadcasting-related complaint, please put it in writing and address it to the head of the complaints committee. Include your full name, contact details, a clear description of your complaint, and any supporting documents. You can email your complaint to feedback@alansar.org.za. That's feedback@alansar.org.za. Or bring it in person to our Pietermaritzburg office at 240 Ortman Road, Willowton. Your input helps us serve you better.
This segment is brought to you by Kenfield Auto, your RMI approved service and repair specialist. 236 Brickfield Road, Overport.
Kenfield Auto.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. ربنا إننا سمعنا مناديا ينادي للإيمان أن آمنوا بربكم فآمنا.
Car won't start.
Kenfield Auto.
Noisy brakes.
Kenfield Auto.
Due for a service.
Kenfield Auto.
Kenfield Auto, the answer to all your car problems. Your service and repair specialist for your VW, Audi, Suzuki, Toyota, or just about any vehicle. Kenfield Auto, your RMI and insurance approved workshop. Follow the red and white board in the passage at 236 Brickfield Road, Overport. Call Shafi on 031 207 2399. Kenfield Auto.
Save the date. Hajj Seminar 2026 is back. Saturday, 11th April, 8 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. at 207 West Road in Overport. Proudly brought to you by the Al Ansar Foundation and the Capital Group of Companies.
Africa. For too many communities across Africa and the world, access to clean water remains a dream. At Africa Muslims Agency, we dig deep, reaching into the heart of the earth to fill the cups of those in need. Sponsor a water well for 16,500 Rand, or a borehole in Afghanistan for 55,000 Rand, or Africa for 65,000 Rand, or any amount. With water comes food, health, education, and growth. An ongoing reward with Africa Muslims Agency.
Durban, are you ready to shop till you drop? The Durban Shopping Festival is back from the 3rd to 6th of April at the Durban Exhibition Centre, bringing you 4 days of incredible shopping and unbelievable deals. And this year, it's all about the deals. Discover fashion steals, beauty must-haves, home decor, delicious food, and so much more. Whether you're a bargain hunter or treating yourself, this is where the best finds are waiting. Don't miss the shopping event everyone's going to talk about. The Durban Shopping Festival. Shop more, save more, enjoy more. Durban's greatest shopping event of the year.
Radio Al Ansar, Durban, 90.4 FM, Pietermaritzburg, 105.6 FM.
मोहम्मद मेरे होठों पे ज़िक्र मदीना ताजदारे हरम के करम से आ गया जिंदगी का करीना मेरे दिल में है याद मोहम्मद.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to News in Focus live on Radio Al Ansar International, broadcasting on the frequency Durban 90.4 FM, Pietermaritzburg 105.6 FM, and streaming on www.alansar.org.za. A special welcome once again to the listeners of Channel Islam International who are joining us live on News in Focus this evening. The name is Yunus, and before the break we were interviewing former Ambassador Ibrahim Rasul. He was the former ambassador of the USA, and he gave us a very good perspective of what's happening currently in Iran and why he was sent back to South Africa. With me live on air is Sayed Mustafa Daryabar. He is the Iran Cultural Counsellor for South Africa. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Brother Sayed Mustafa, and welcome to News in Focus live on Radio Al Ansar International.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To you and to your all listeners who just listen to this very profound radio.
We thank you for joining us this evening amidst all the turmoil that's taking place in your homeland, Iran. And, we are delighted with the, response of our brothers in Iran to Israel and U.S. bombing of Iran. Now, what has emerged is that the U.S. are preparing to invade Iran on land using the neighboring Arab countries as a staging ground. Iran has been hunting and targeting U.S. troops in secret locations in the Gulf. Missiles continued to rain on the U.S. forces. And today, Iranian strikes targeted U.S. interests in UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, and Saudi Arabia. So Iran is prepared for a very long war. Everybody's talking about a ceasefire. Trump is now on the back foot. Netanyahu is all over the place. Your comments, Brother Sayed Mustafa, on the current situation?
Everybody went to bed on Friday night, 27. There was no war. But when we woke up on Saturday, 28, we woke up to a war. They started the war. They initiated the war. And unfortunately, it has been from the soil and the land of our neighbor. It did not come from the overseas, from the land of USA. And also it came from the Zionist regime occupied land. So it's very clear that when you have been attacked and your children has been killed, your sister, brother has been killed, and they're still continuing it, you go for the giving a good lesson to them. So that's an inherent right of self-defense that we applied it and still we continue it.
Now, an Israeli journalist, Alon Murzahi, he's stating that we've lost this war. The United States is taking the biggest defeat in its history. It will never be able to return to Asia again. We are witnessing history. Iran is destroying American bases in such a comprehensive, large-scale and determined manner that it's catching everyone off guard. The world isn't ready for this. Iran has managed to expand its military dominance in the region in just 4 days. It has obliterated the world's most valuable and expensive military bases, properties, and equipment. The American bases in Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia are among the largest military facilities on the planet. These facilities took decades to build and cost trillions of dollars. We're talking about a massive portion of military spending over the past 30 plus years going down the drain. We're seeing radars worth hundreds of millions of dollars wiped out in an instant. We're seeing all military bases abandoned, burned, looted, and destroyed. And I can tell you this, as far as I know, the U.S. has never experienced destruction like this in its history, except for Pearl Harbor, but that has just a single attack. So, Brother Sayed Bhai, Iran has made us all proud.
The problem is that our enemy does not know the system of Iran. They don't know how the Iran works. They don't know the nation of Iran, the people of Iran. They don't know the supreme leaders in Iran. So they made a big mistake when they started to come to the Iran. Iran with two things. One is the spirituality basing on the trust to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Almighty God. He will continue and observe all those things. And when you see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Quran, وَأَعِدُّ لَهُمْ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُم مِّن قُوَّةٍ, we just plan for our enemy. Or we didn't know that how is our enemy. To knowing our enemy, we work on it a lot. So based on the enmity of our enemy, the level of the enmity that our enemy has, we prepared for this. So that was planned for decades, because they just sanctioned us for 47 years from the beginning of the revolution in 1979. So we did know all these things, especially the martyr supreme leader Ayatollah Said Ali Khamenei did know all these things very well. He has a very good insight. He changed the country from lowest level of the technology and science and those things to the very high level in the nanotechnology, medicine, many things. And a part of it goes to the military aspect and the missile and drone that you see. For example, if you go to the electricity, some of them, they threaten Iran to just attack the electricity plant, and they did a few of them. But let me tell you that even they attack 70 of our electricity plant, they could just take us back to last summer, that we just produced 25,000 megawatt. We have 400 electricity plants, so they cannot. Iran is a big country, and also backing to the civilization of Iran, 5,000 years, and to be as a first country has been stated and has many things. So working on these two things, mixing the spirituality, which is a divine coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God, Almighty God, and also relying on the people. Once Supreme Leader, when he asked why you don't produce military weapon, when you went to the issuing the fatwa, the verdict, Islamic verdict regarding that it is haram, it is forbidden, he said two things. One thing is that the most powerful weapon is not a nuclear weapon. It is a faith of the people. It is a people themselves. It is a use. And the second thing is if I permit using the nuclear weapon, it's against the Islamic law, because it will kill the innocent people, and we don't want that any innocent people to be killed. Many during these weeks asked me why sometimes Israel and US attack you, whole building comes down, but when you attack one of their hotels or those things, only one floor goes to the fire. I said, even myself, I pray that fire not to goes to the floor up or the floor down, because I don't want to scream of a child goes to the heaven and make Allah's change the decision not to help us. We need the help of the angels. I just mentioned a story from the martyr General Qasem Soleimani. Once he called his friend when he was fighting there with Israel and helping the Hamas, Jihad Islami, those things. He called his friend in Tehran. It was in the time of winter, and there was a very heavy snow on the mountain of Tehran. So he called his friend and said, have you put some food for the animals in the mountain? He said, oh, General, I was told that you are calling for very important strategic points and you are fighting, and now you're asking me, have you put some food in the down of the mountain? He said, yes, because I need the dua, the prayer of that animals as well. So for us, relying on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is everything. The Nasr and the Fath, the help and the conquer is not coming from the Supreme Leader, it's not coming from the nation, it's not coming from the Mujahideen fighters, it's coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Iza ja'a nasrullahi wal fath, not Iza ja'a nasru Supreme Leader or ja'a nasru Mujahideen. No, Nas is coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Brother Seyed, you made some very pertinent points, and you've indicated, I quote, that this is not only a people's war, a military war, it's a divine war. And if you reflect the lives of the Prophet ﷺ, the Sahaba Ikram, and the battles that they went through, they stuck to Sharia, they stuck to what they had to do, and even they had an army small in number to the enemy. Allah made it victorious for them because they obeyed Allah's commandments as shown to us by the Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And those are very pertinent points. I have with me Brother Sayyid, Senior Counsel Advocate Mohamed Saleem Khan, and he wants to make a comment and ask you a question as well.
Okay, but before to go to that, regarding the point that you said, that's a spiritual religious war. We rather to say that it is a war against the Epstein's friend, Epstein's class, and those people are the evil Satan. So it's now it became clear that how these people look at this word and satanic, and they just go for worshiping Satan. Many of them, the idol of Baal, or different things, and there are many things that these pedophilian guys now ruling the world. But I'm sure the free fighter all around the world, whether to be a state or to be a party or to be civilians, will stand against them. No different. Even one individual to be in the side of the to be in the side of the justice, peace, love, mercy, real human rights, real woman rights. It's worthy, and Allah will calculate this. The question are welcome.
Most certainly, Brother Sayed. And also, just before I advocate to come in, in the prior generations, leaders who claimed they were very powerful and they were potent and nobody could defeat them, Kamrun, Haman, Namrud, and they were all linked to Shaitan, and in the end they were reduced to nothing. In the Qabr you take nothing, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly says that this world is not equivalent to a wing of a mosquito. So this materialism and pursuits that the West is really fighting for, they don't know it will lead to nothing. Advocate Saleem, you want to come in?
Thank you. Seyed, everyone acknowledges that the attacks perpetrated by the United States in conjunction with Zionist Israel against Iran is a premeditated contravention of international law. That's acknowledged. That's a given. In addition to that, the grave misconduct perpetrated by Zionist Israel, assisted by the United States, against the people of Gaza is a clear infringement of both public and private international law. That too is a given and accepted by the international community. What is so astounding, though, is that the international community, and I mean every country, has paid lip service to this, but have not reacted in an effective manner in order to discourage this continuing attacks. It is inexplicable, it is shocking that even at this late stage, Israel, Zionist Israel, continues to perpetrate these genocidal atrocities against the people of Gaza. However, a country that can be singled out as having contributed to some type of resistance in favor of the people of Gaza is Iran, because Iran announced that part of its retaliatory measures against Zionist Israel has been influenced by an endeavor to try and curb the Zionist genocidal atrocities in Gaza. It has said, for example, this particular attack is dedicated to a little child who was murdered by Zionist Israel. Now, this is very effective, and this has contributed positively not only to Iran's resistance, but also to the impression created internationally of Iran. Now, what I would like you to do, and I appeal to you to do this, would you be able to convey to the powers that be in Iran, to government in Iran, that it is at present receiving offers of settlement through intermediaries from the state? And we've heard senior representatives of the American government say on the media that should Iran be prepared to cooperate and resolve matters amicably, that they will certainly encourage settlement negotiations. But the point which I'm making is, please convey to the powers that be in Iran that they should introduce a further condition as a demand, which is a prerequisite to settlement negotiations, and that is that Zionist Israel must desist from all further genocidal atrocities against the people of Gaza. Firstly, that must be a precondition. Secondly, that should they breach the precondition, we know that Zionist Israel and the United States have repeatedly breached conditions which have formed the subject matter of the agreements with Iran and also with other countries. Now, a further condition should be that should Zionist Israel breach this condition, then Iran will adopt retaliatory measures. So that will be an aspect that will be so significant from a religious perspective, and you've made reference to certain religious principles, but also from the perspective of human rights, and you've also made reference to human rights, and at a very basic human level, the protection of our brothers and sisters, mothers, defenseless women and children in Gaza is of paramount importance. Iran has established a platform, and this platform can be used for so many different purposes. And the one paramount purpose and material and significant purpose should be to encourage cessation of all kinds of genocidal atrocities against our brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, and children in Gaza. What do you think of that, Seyed?
Thank you for your question, and you explained it very well. You started by saying that these two countries, Zionist regime and USA, attacked us. One is the big Satan, as addressed by Imam Khomeini to the governor of the US, and also the genocide makers that South Africa just took the Israel into the ICJ, and just it happens that very clearly they made a genocide. We say that this cancer should be removed from the West Asia. But going to furthermore, talking about the way that we look at the Palestine, when the revolution of Iran started, before 15 years before the victory, Imam Khomeini mentions 3 things. One, and the first was the USA. He says that we don't want USA, and USA is a big shaitan, big Satan. And the second says Zionist regime should goes not from Iran, from the regime, and should go from all over the world, should be removed. And the third was the king, the Shah. Look at the priority that we have in our revolution. So talking about the Palestine, or occupied land of Palestine, it was our central issue. It was a key issue in Iran's revolution, and even after the victory, being sanctioned for 7 years, and the main issue was there because of the Zionist regime and the Palestine, and we never regret, is that human duty, is a divine duty for us. We are obliged to do it. It's our wajib, it's our obligation for us, like the salat, like a praying is no different for us. So supporting it. So talking about it is talking about the heart of the revolution, talking about the heart of Islamic Republic of Iran. And once even the Martyr Supreme Leader says that the key of the freedom of the Baytul Muqaddas comes back to the supporting of Palestine, and it should be happen. So even as I said, the issue of the king of Iran, Shah, to go out and not to have a kingdom in Iran was the third issue. And the late Imam Khomeini says that the Shah is a puppet of the USA and Zionism, and that those two are the main problem. So we and Palestine are two hands of one body, of one resistant human being. There is a one resistant front, and we have one enemy, that's the Zionist regime. And sometimes we hit the Zionist regime with the right hand, sometimes we hit him with the left hand. And the issue of Palestine is central issue for us. And nowadays, when we attack Zionist regime, our missiles goes for standing with Palestinian, with Gaza, with Hamas, with Jihad, with any movement that they work against the Zionist regime. And so that's when you just ask about something comes from the essence or the heart of those things. It's not something secondary, or it's not something to say, okay, to be pasted. No, it's part of us, is a center for us. And more than me, as a cultural attaché here, those who are the power, the new supreme leader, if the people knows the system of Iran, knows the idea and doctrine of Iran, they know that 100%, when I say 100%, even not 99, 100%, the issue of Palestine is central in all negotiation. We just built the resistant front in the West Asia because of Palestine. Yemen, Hezbollah, Hashd al-Sha'bi, whoever is for because of the freedom of the Palestine. Even though we didn't accept Zionist regime, we didn't accept two-state, we say that occupier has no even 1% right, let alone to say two-state. Look at how Iran is firmly regarding this issue. So no worry about it when it is something comes from the essence of the revolution.
Sayed, recently, there's a lot of publicity given to preconditions set by the United States for settlement negotiations, and also preconditions set by Iran for settlement negotiations. In other words, Iran says, we're prepared to engage in settlement negotiations which will result in termination of the war. The United States has also said that they would consider settlement subject to certain preconditions being accepted by Iran. Now, so what I would like, and I think many South Africans would like, is that Iran should set two preconditions. In other words, add two conditions to the preconditions which they have conveyed through third parties, through Pakistan, etc., to the United States. And these two preconditions are the following. Firstly, we want Iran to tell the United States that Iran is only prepared to negotiate settlement if other than the other conditions, these two preconditions are met. Firstly, that Zionist Israel must stop its genocidal atrocities in Gaza. It must stop attacking the people in Gaza. Firstly. Secondly, that if it undertakes to do so and later on goes back on its word, in other words, breaches its undertaking to do so, that Iran will then adopt retaliatory measures against them. And then the last condition which we want to recommend, and that is that Masjid al-Aqsa, Mubarak, must be opened. And Israel, Zionist Israel, must not ever again in the future interfere with Masjid al-Aqsa. Masjid al-Aqsa must always remain open, and the Zionist influence, negative influence over Masjid al-Aqsa must cease. You see, Iran has established a very advantageous position, and through all the hard work it's done, through its strategy, its brilliant military strategy, etc., which has featured, discussions have featured on that, and it's established a platform for itself. Now, it can use this platform in order to eradicate these atrocities against the Palestinian people. It can use this also to cause Masjid al-Aqsa to be reopened and for there to be cessation of negative Zionist influence in relation to Masjid al-Aqsa. And we urge Iran to do this. You know, South Africa has been very proactive. South Africa has gone to the International Court of Justice. It's argued matters at the International Court of Justice successfully. The problem, of course, is enforcement. The United Nations is toothless and is not enforcing the rulings made by the International Court of Justice. It's also not enforcing the public and private international law that prohibits this type of misconduct by Zionist Israel and by the United States. But Iran has now established a very advantageous position. We would like Iran, South Africa would like Iran to use this position to bring to an end all these atrocities in Gaza and to cause Masjid al-Aqsa to reopen. What do you think of that, Seyed?
I totally agree with you. But to add more to this, that we started doing this negotiation, and the platform that and the table of the negotiations that we use is the Sejil, Khorramshahr, drones, and those missiles. That was a very good job of the South Africa that took the Israel to the ICJ and as a genocide maker. But as you mentioned, the problem was enforcement. We solved this problem. And instead of they just to enforce others, we enforce them with the Sejil, Khorramshahr, and drones and many other things. And you can see that how missiles destroyed these their powers, both USA and both Zionist regime. So practically, we're negotiating with them. Talk is enough. You know that many of the international has been said by the professors, international activists, and many figures and many governors all around the world that it's somehow dead or is dead totally. So we work on those things, talk on negotiation, many things. But more than this is enforcement, a just enforcement that should these two countries should pay heavily for the aggression that they had during the 77 years to the oppressed people of the Palestine and other part of the world, what they have done. Also, we don't go for the negotiation very soon. It's too early to talk about the ceasefire and those things. Why you talk about it? We are not okay just to go very early to the ceasefire, and we don't mentioning even the word of ceasefire. We say that we don't want that the circle of war, negotiation, peace, and again war to happen. They should give us a practical and actual, a real guarantee, practical guarantee that they don't come to us. A ceasefire is not something that is not a good term to use it. They initiated the war, and they is still continuing, and they escalating the war. They go do this thing. Talking about the negotiations, ceasefire is very soon, and let's give them a good lesson practically, and to they lose their position not to be a superpower, so-called superpower. We don't believe in those things, but the term that they use it in the world. So let's change their place. Let's for 47 years they were doing sanction to us. Now for 4 weeks just be contouring the Strait of Hormuz, and you can see they cannot stand it. You know, they should pay heavily for the all aggression, all attack, all occupying, all unjust, those zones that they have done for many years, many decades. And now it's time. I mean, Almighty God came for the retaliation, for the intiqam. And when we say that God is coming, so We attribute him as a Qadir, that no one can reach to him, and before him, others is nothing. It's really zero. When Imam Khomeini said that آمریکا هیچ غلطی نمیتواند بکند, the Farsi sentence, that America cannot do any wrong things, it's really Tawheed, unity, God, believing in God. And that's the advice of Islamic Republic of Iran, all neighbors, Muslim countries, that you may address this question that you mention it now to these countries, that as a human being, as an Arab, as a Muslim, what did they do? Instead of having a military base of the Palestine in their countries, they opened the military base of the Shaitan Kabir Akbar, USA. How is it possible? Instead of helping, supporting Hamas, any fighters, any freedom fighters in the Palestine, they went for the Abraham Accord, and they think that it's really only fool who cannot see that the genocide is a part of the great Israel project underway in the West Asia by the Zionist regime with its slave Trump. So I think Ms. Naledi Pandor very addressed it well when she answers that the unity of the Persian Gulf country for Palestine should happen. I'm not sure that something like this truly and really happen, but we look for the repentant. Hopefully, inshallah, they will come back. There is a verse of Quran saying, addressing to the believers, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا آمنوا. Those who are the believers, add please, but we don't please, believe. It means that really believe that there is God and God is powerful. Not USA, not Zionist regime, not Epstein's friend. We our table and platform for the negotiation is Sejil Khorramshah, and it's not time for words. When it time reached to the words, is the time that they accepted the failure, and they are in not the position of so-called superpower. That's the time that we say that they should take off their hands from all resistant countries and groups.
Shukran, Brother Sayed. You got quite a pertinent name, Sayed Mustafa. I agree that the superpower is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam has been our supreme leader. His sunnats we follow, followed by the Sahaba Ikram. And the saying goes that you start the fight, we will finish. So Iran is going that route, and the direction they're taking is in line, with the thinking of our Sahabas of the past. When they went into the battlefield, they made sure they obeyed the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as shown to us by Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, kept up to their salah. And with that niyat, alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make our brothers victorious. We around the world have to make fervent du'as that Allah protect our mujahideen and ensure that shaitan and all these people that are involved in batil and materialism are defeated. But before we close up, Brother Sayyid, I think Advocate just wants to make one or two brief comments, and inshallah we'll close up then. Advocate?
Thank you. Sayyid, you made reference to the Abraham Accord. And the Abraham Accord, as we know, which is a product of the United States and Zionist Israel, is directed at frustrating the Islamic ideal, and it's an attempt to equate Islam to Christianity and to Judaism. Now, this must be perceived in the context of the closure of Masjid al-Aqsa. These are linked In other words, the frustration of Islamic goals through the introduction or attempted introduction of the Abraham Accord must be viewed in the context of the closure of Masjid al-Aqsa. So Iran, having established the platform which I referred to earlier, I urge you to carry to the powers that be in Iran the fact that one of the demands which Iran should make, together with its demands it has made the demands for compensation for all the damage occasioned to it over the years. It has called for recognition of its sovereignty over the Straits of Hormuz. What we're asking in addition is, please call upon the powers that be in Iran to introduce as further conditions the opening of Masjid al-Aqsa and the cessation of all types of violent conduct against Gaza.
Many of these comments are inside Iran. If you just look at the media, newspaper, writers, figures, politicians, imams, Friday prayer imams. So politician, different party, different ministry, IRG. You can find that they say that it should be, or removing the sanctions should be included. They should give a guarantees that they don't attack any resistant front, including the Palestine, including Lebanon, including Yemen. All these things from the first week has been come up in the very huge articles from and many speech in the national Iranian TV and radio. So that's nothing to say that they don't know. They are aware of this, but let's reach to a time that when we put all this on the table, they should accept. They have no way to accept, and it's when we defeat it very strongly. Just one thing, let me just say, maybe the audience, some of the audience are not Muslim. Let me go like this, that to the introduction to the resistance, based on Islam and based on the divine understanding or doctrine, we say that the first principle is self. فَادْخُلُوا فِي السِّلْمِ كَافًا. This is a verse of Quran revealed. It is the word of Almighty God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَادْخُلُوا فِي السِّلْمِ كَافَّةً. So first is a self. Self even is different from the sulh in Arabic, these two words. Because sulh is after the war, peace after the war, but self is a peace before the war even. So Allah addressing, even ordering, commanding that everyone, kaffatan means all, without any exception. So the first principle is a peace without this. But when you have been attacked, so it comes to another principle, because there is an inherent right. So that's the another, when you go to another verse that address the Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sahbihi al-muntajabin, said istaqim kama umar. So do the istiqama. So it's permitted. More than this, it is obligated. Istiqama is something comes. The structure of istaqim is a structure of obligation. Means wajib is obligatory for you. When something is obligatory for you, so 100% you should do it. You are not permitted not to do it. It's like a salat. You should perform it. You cannot say, "Oh, I don't want to perform it." Or, no, it's not the situation. Or it's not the time. Tomorrow, let's do it tomorrow. Or it's not for me. It's for someone else. No, istaqim is for everyone. Kama Umar, as you have been commanded. But when you go to the fight, when you go to the war, it's very, very important as a Muslim, as a believer, as a faithful. And this is the difference between us and Epstein's friends or Epstein's class, those sides that we observe morality. وَلَا تَتْقَوْا. Don't do tughyan. Don't do tughyan means observe morality, observe the ahkam. So all these things come back to these issues that we don't look for any problem. So first of all, we look for the peace. But when we have been attacked by others, so we go for the resistance. That's the a doctrine that we always use this doctrine before the war and in the time of the war.
Okay, brother Sayed Mustafa Daryabar, it was a pleasure interviewing you and you sharing such brilliant comments with us and indicating to the world that Iran is ready for the fight to continue, and they really want to put the West, not only USA, Israel, and the West on the back foot, that with the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are the superpowers because Allah is the superpower of this world. We wish you everything of the best in your, the post you hold in South Africa, and we will be keeping in touch with you for future interviews. Shukran for joining us this evening, Brother Sayed Mustafa Daryabar.
Thank you for you and also for your listening and others who joined this discussion.
Okay, that was Brother Sayed Mustafa Daryabar. We know we ran out of time. We 20 odd minutes over our normal time, but it's been very interesting chatting with our different brothers. We've got one more item to discuss, and I'm sure our listeners will bear with us for the next 10 minutes. That's to just chat about the global economy. Will there be a recovery? People have investments throughout the world. They want to know how the rand is performing. Petrol went up this morning, and where to from here from an economic perspective. So bear with us for the next 10 minutes. We'll have a short break for a minute or so. Inshallah, we'll continue our discussion.
When you give water, you bring life to drought-affected communities, providing fresh water for drinking, cleaning, and growing. Your support helps Islamic Relief implement water, sanitation, and hygiene projects, providing clean water to communities around the world. Donate now to Islamic Relief.
Looking for something exciting to do in Durban? Join us at The Social, a premium pop-up experience from the 4th to the 6th of April at Muni's Hockey Club, next to the Botanic Gardens. With over 85 vendors, amazing food, drinks, and desserts, there's something for everyone. Entrance is just $20. Follow at The Social DBN on Instagram. The Social, where Durban comes together. Proudly sponsored by Accents and Haval Toti.
Save the date. Hajj Seminar 2026 is back. Saturday, 11th April, 8 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. at 207 West Road in Overport. Proudly brought to you by the Al Ansar Foundation and the Capital Group of Companies.
Welcome to Simplex Radio. Visit our showroom for the full range of car audio. Our TV department carries top brands with quality LED panels, full HD to Ultra HD, and now the experience of Super Ultra HD. Visit our theater rooms and transform your home with brands like Onkyo, Integra, Denon, Boston Acoustics, Yamaha, and more for quality audio visual experience. Now available, full range of home appliances. A one-stop shopping experience. Call 031 306 4029 or Kenilworth Park, 202 Brickfield Road, Overport. Simplex Radio, the name you can trust.
Durban Halal Meats, the butcher with a twist. Whether you're firing up the braai or stocking up for your business, we've got you covered. From premium lamb, beef, and chicken to custom cuts and bulk orders, all 100% halal certified by Sanha. Enjoy our convenient buy and braai service, fast delivery, and easy online ordering at durbanhalalmeats.co.za. Visit us at 84 Felix Dlamini Road. Durban Halal Meats. Quality, affordability, trust. Meat made better.
Durban, are you ready to shop till you drop? The Durban Shopping Festival is back from the 3rd to 6th of April at the Durban Exhibition Centre, bringing you 4 days of incredible shopping and unbelievable deals. And this year, it's all about the deals. Discover fashion steals, beauty must-haves, home decor, delicious food, and so much more. Whether you're a bargain hunter or treating yourself, this is where the best finds are waiting. Don't miss the shopping event everyone's going to talk about. The Durban Shopping Festival. Shop more, save more, enjoy more. Durban's greatest shopping event of the year.
For over 5 decades, Sunfoil has nurtured a legacy rooted from our land. From a sunflower seed grown with goodness and love, crafted through excellence, precision, and care. Proudly South African and the only 100% pure sunflower oil endorsed as a diamond partner by the Heart and Stroke Foundation. Cook with confidence, serving the best to the people you love from one dish to the next. Sunfoil, the heart of good cooking.
اللهم انصر إخواننا المستضعفين على أرض فلسطين. اللهم انصر إخواننا المستضعفين على أرض فلسطين. اللهم حرر المسجد الأقصى من اليهود الغاصبين. اللهم انصر إخواننا المرابطين على أرض فلسطين. اللهم شد أزرهم وسدد رميهم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم الطف بإخواننا في كل مكان يذكر فيه اسمك يا أرحم الراحمين. استنصروك يا الله فانصرهم. اللهم ارحم الضعفاء والفقراء والمساكين والأيتام والنازحين والمشردين والأسرى يا أرحم الراحمين.
اللهم أنج المستضعفين من المسلمين في فلسطين. اللهم كن لهم عونا ونصيرا. اللهم كن لإخواننا المرابطين في المسجد الأقصى. اللهم كن لهم ولا تكن عليهم. اللهم فرج همهم، نفس كربهم، داو جرحاهم، عاف مبتلاهم، اشف مرضاهم، ارحم موتاهم، تقبل شهداءهم.
يا رسول الله يا حبيب الله. آقا 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 آقا. پھر کے گلی گلی تباہ ٹھوکر صبر کی کھائے کیوں. دل کو جو عقل دے خدا تیری گلی سے جائے کیوں. رخصت کا فدا کشان غش سے ہمیں اٹھائے کیوں. رخصت کا فدا کشان غش سے ہمیں اٹھائے کیوں. سوتے ہیں ان کے سائے میں، سوتے ہیں ان کے سائے میں، کوئی ہمیں جگائے کیوں. پھر کے گلی تباہ دکھائے کیوں. دل کو جو عقل دے خدا تیری گلی سے جائے کیوں. یاد حضور کی قسم غفلت عیش ہے ستم. یاد حضور کی قسم غفلت عیش ہے ستم. خوب ہے قید غم میں ہم، خوب ہے قید غم میں ہم. کوئی ہمیں چھڑائے کیوں.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We'll continue with the nasheed at the end of the program. Welcome back to the final session of News in Focus live on Radio Al Ansar International on the frequency Durban 90.4 FM, Peter Marisburg 105.6 FM, and streaming on www.alansar.org.za. We had quite an interesting program this evening. We overran our time by about a half an hour. We're going to wrap up now, and we just want to continue with that last aspect, which a lot of listeners, those that are listening and are still awake, is what impact this had on the global economy. We know it had a substantial impact. And the question that our listeners are now raising is, will there be a recovery? And we know with COVID, there was a huge downturn and then there was a recovery. So markets haven't been smashed so badly as COVID, but however, it has significantly dropped. We know that the price of petrol was supposed to go up by something like about 6 Rand a litre, but with the 3 Rand levy drop, it went up just over 3 Rand. So there was some relief from the government to the South African community. I've got with me Brother Hassan Motala. He's our economist, chartered accountant, asset manager, who's joined us. He's waited quite a long. He was enjoying the interviews of our previous other guests. Hassan, you got 5 minutes. I know it's too less for you. You can talk for hours on the subject. Last week you mentioned there was a bit of an up and down movement of the markets. The Rand was also quite volatile. The question that our listeners are asking is, will there be a recovery? Do you foresee a recovery, and what impact this whole thing is going to have on costs, and for how long?
Sure. I think firstly, Yunus, you must bear in mind, last night we had the petrol price increase. Fortunately, I mean, Minister of Finance, Minister Gorongwana, came through with a last minute, 3 Rand relief.
It came as a surprise.
Which is a fantastic relief. To put into perspective, 3 Rand is off 4 Rand is what the fuel levy is, excluding the road accident fund.
You know what the supporters of government are saying is, this was basically an intelligent political maneuver just before the election.
It was a fantastic maneuver. And look, I think it has been done, I think, in several other countries around the world as well. But it was fantastic because if you look at it, 3 Rand impact is costing government 6 billion rands a month in terms of loss of revenue from the fact of the 3 billion, from the fact of the 3 Rand per litre. So I think it was good. But at the end of the day, the fact is, petrol price has gone up by 3 Rand or so, by 3 Rand something. But diesel is where still it's a big challenge. 7 Rand 50 is a huge impact in terms of where the last diesel price is now. It's still over a 30% increase in terms of the diesel price.
Well, having said that, the public is raising this issue with us, and the government hasn't answered it, is that South Africa have not so significantly been affected by the supply of oil, because Iran is an ally of South Africa, and we're getting oil from Sasol and Nigeria and other places, including Mozambique and Southwest. So did the government take advantage of the situation, or were they forced to have some kind of
I don't think they took advantage. I think we bearing in mind is, look, we still import a significant portion of our fuel is imported, but we do have also local production.
But
like
they just got
Sasol.
knocked with the cost of importing.
Exactly. You will. I mean, everybody is going to be imported or impacted.
So
by
they may have the
cost.
supply, but the cost was much
Correct. So the key point is that we're getting supply.
So the anticipation of the rationing may not be a reality at this stage.
At this stage, not as yet.
Because other countries, the supply.
Because
could have
in
been
fact,
the problem.
Iran has also allowed certain of our vessels that are coming into SA free and safe passage through.
So they appreciate South Africa's intervention, as pointed out by
100%. 100%. So there are certain countries that are being allowed that. I mean, they've noted a couple of countries. South Africa is one of them, where Spain is another. Of the European ones, Spain is one because they've been so vociferous and anti the war. In fact, they've not allowed. They've just recently, I think, a few days ago, that stated that their airspace is not open to U.S. airplanes that are being used in the war against Iran.
Spain was openly critical about the Gaza setup.
100%. And you got to hand it to them.
Countries that have followed as well.
100%. You got to hand
Europe,
it.
You say
Exactly. So I think, look, the impact of this price will come through in terms of flowing to the economy. Fortunately, I think it was not. It's still bad, but not as bad as what it could have been. I think government reduced the impact to some extent.
And it's relevant to know the coach of Man City, Pep Guardiola, was verbose against the atrocities in Gaza and very clear about it, notwithstanding the fact that he's holding a very senior position in the Premier League.
100%. You must see one video, I think, Yunus, where they had where they were getting their medals. I can't remember whether it's the
And he didn't shake
UEFA,
on with the Israeli
and he
guy.
was, but he did it so fantastically and professionally. And he didn't shake hands with the Israeli representative there, and he made sure every one of his players
Didn't shake
that man's hand.
Okay.
He strategically stood in the way. He made them go around him and shake everybody else besides that. Now that tells you that is true leadership.
Definitely.
Exactly. So I think, firstly, coming back to the impact, I think there will be a related impact. We must bear in mind that fuel impacts many parts of the economy. Food in particular will be an impact, because if you're going into the planting season with many of the agricultural crops, diesel and fertilizer costs are also going up because of the supply issues that will come through. That will impact some of the crops over the coming months, and therefore food prices potentially go up. However, there are some positives happening in SA. Remember, we being the tip of South Africa is positioning SA as being a relatively safe destination. Now, a couple of key things have happened. The president hosted the investment conference in South Africa this past week. He spoke on Tuesday at this conference. Importantly, he's targeted 2 trillion, whether it happens or not, but he's targeting 2 trillion over the next 5 years. To date, we've had a fair amount. I mean, there's about 500 billion or so over the last few years has been invested in the country. But 2 or 3 key announcements were made. Firstly, China's Chery, who's taking over the Nissan plant in South Africa, Roslyn. They have now committed to a few billion rands in terms of upgrading the facility and manufacturing in South Africa. So previously, only imports of Chinese and Indian vehicles were taking place. They've committed now to actually produce Chery cars in South Africa. With the result, 3,000 jobs will be saved and more employed. But also importantly, the supply chain, 20,000 jobs within the supply chain will benefit and will be saved on the back of that. Secondly, Coca-Cola, it's on the BDS list, and we have the one thing they've noted though is Coca-Cola is committing to 17.5 billion rands of investment in South Africa over the next 4 to 5 years. So again, putting infrastructure back into South Africa, creating employment and the like, despite what is happening globally and the like, South Africa is doing that. Thirdly, we hosted one of the golf is a huge, and some may view it as a rich man's sport. But if you look at it, you've got the PGA, and more recently in the last number of years is what is called Live Golf. Live Golf was hosted in Johannesburg, a city which is meant to have been in a downward trend over the last decade and viewed as being, crumbling. Guess what? Johannesburg proved that they could host one of the major golf tournaments, and they did it phenomenally. And it showed not only locals, but it showed foreigners that came in and viewed us across the world that Johannesburg is actually a city that can do things right when they want to do things right. Now, I think it's giving us a little bit of optimism and confidence that inshallah, hopefully, if the war doesn't extend, for a next few months, look, if it ends within the next month or two, I think the related impact in terms of the global economy and the South African economy will be not as bad. But if this goes on for another 6 to 12 months, we must brace ourselves that come towards the end of this year, next year, we will potentially face a recession. That is an impact. But hopefully, inshallah, this doesn't go on for longer. Maybe within the next 2 months or so, it ends. I think the related impact will be less, and we'll start to see the benefit of that.
We'll have some kind of
some kind of impact. And I think we must just, there is some optimism. There is some optimism within the country that things are, we had one of the best budgets this year that we haven't seen in many years. First time, no tax increases, no talk about VAT increase, nothing. And you had some relief in terms of tax. You had some benefit in terms of expenditure in other areas and increases and the like. That is good things to happen. That is good for us to happen. I think the things that we need to challenge and we're going to have to focus on with this municipal elections this year is our municipality, eThekwini. I mean, there was a comparison that was done today of the eThekwini budget that's come out and comparing it to the Cape Town's budget. And the differential in terms of rate increases in Cape Town and eThekwini is ridiculous. eThekwini is talking between 10 to 15% increases in terms of electricity, water, sanitation, and refuse. On the other hand, Cape Town is talking about between 3.5% to 5% or 6%, say 6.5%. A vast difference in impact. Secondly, the budget's expenditure. Of the budget, only about 15 billion is being allocated towards infrastructure by eThekwini. If you compare that to Cape Town, they're talking about 40 odd billion towards infrastructure over the next number of years. Again, mindset change in terms of where this municipality and their management is focusing. And again, they are tone deaf in terms of understanding the impact that the ordinary people out there are facing in today's times. And just levying 10 and 15% increases in the current climate is really, you're not cognizant and you're not empathetic towards what's happening to ordinary citizens out there.
Okay, I think we ran out of time. We're 45 minutes over our time. And that brings us to the end of News in Focus for this evening, a very interesting program. I want to thank our guest, Hassan Mutali, Chartered Accountant, Asset Manager. He's always quite concise in his comments, and at least there is some hope that if the war ceases in the next few months, there will be a recovery, and government is stepping in. Senior Counsel Advocate Mohamed Saleem Khan for some brilliant comments, a brilliant interview with our guest this evening. We really thank Advocate Saleem Khan. He's quite, versatile in the situation in the Middle East. Ambassador Ibrahim Rasool for his comments, a brilliant interview with Dr. Naledi Pandor, as well as Sayed Mustafa Daryabar. We'd like to thank our technician Dawood Monley and Brother Abdul Valodia for assisting us to coordinate our guest this evening. He's the chair of UFP at ORA, and we didn't have much time to chat with him, but we will interview Abdul. He's another individual that does a lot of work in the quiet civic activism, etc. And we appreciate all the support he gives us in the Al Ansar Foundation. On a concluding note, I'd like to thank our listeners for staying awake for so late, those that are stayed awake, and the listeners of CI that joined us until they closed at 20 past 10. We appreciate your joining us. We trust and hope that you enjoyed this program for this evening. We will continue to bring you world-class programs going forward. We have the Durban Shopping Festival that's taking place starting tomorrow at 4 o'clock and ending on Monday. We request all our listeners to join us there. There will be some live programs taking place at the shopping festival, and we trust our listeners and guests will join us there. And on a closing note, I always said, and all our guests mentioned, that Allah is in control of the world, and Allah is the best of planners. and as Muslims, we have total reliance in the support of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in whatever we do in life. So following the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as shown to us by Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, is the winning formula. We have to fight against oppression, have a just system, be just in the way we do things, perform our 5 times salah with Jamaat, the men and women folk at home, help the poor and needy, continue with our humanitarian efforts, and in this way we'll be fulfilling our life in this dunya in preparation for the akhirat. We know the sacrifices our brothers and sisters in Gaza are going through. Children are dying, children are becoming orphans, parents are dying, and they're left homeless, they're left penniless, and we know what it is to struggle. The economy is going through difficult times, and people who were employed last year are unemployed this year. Middle income is battling, low income is decimated, so you have to make dua and provide the support and help for poor people. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala introduced zakat, lillah, etc. So may we continue helping our people, caring for our people, making duas for our mujahideen in other parts of the world, and inshallah daily keep our fellow brethren in our duas. On that note, we'll continue with News in Focus next week. Until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Let's continue with that.